For years you were told to save more, work harder, stick to a budget. That advice never worked. The people who actually build real wealth do something completely different, and willpower has almost nothing to do with it. Wealth is rarely built through heroic effort. It is built through tiny, repeated actions that go unnoticed in the moment, but stack on top of each other, like a snowball rolling down a hill. One investor automated a transfer, so the decision happens once and keeps working for years. Another dropped the habit of constantly checking prices. Each of these actions looks meaningless on its own, but it is exactly these micro-habits that create the difference between someone who eventually reaches financial freedom and someone who stays stuck on the same salary for years. Today, we are breaking down 7 of these habits. Each one works even without willpower, because it is built on automation and system, not on painful discipline. Stay until the end, because habit number 4 changes the way you look at profit altogether. Before we get into the list, there is one principle you need to understand. It is called behavioral compounding. Everyone knows compound interest works with money. You invest an amount, it earns a return. The return gets reinvested, and growth accelerates on its own. But human behavior works the exact same way. Every small financial decision either moves you closer to wealth or pulls you away from it. One right choice barely matters, but 100 of the same right choices, repeated on autopilot, turn into a system that works even when you are not thinking about it. This is exactly why beginner investors get discouraged in the first year. They wait for results driven by motivation, but motivation fades within a few weeks. A system built on habit keeps running regardless of mood or how busy life gets. Successful investors are not stronger-willed than everyone else. They simply built a system earlier, one where the right action happens automatically. Keep this in mind, because each of the following 7 habits is a piece of a system that runs on compounding. Only instead of money directly, it compounds your behavior. The first habit sounds simple, but it is exactly what separates people who actually build capital from people who keep postponing investing forever. This is the pay yourself first principle. The moment income arrives, a portion of it moves straight into investments automatically before you get the chance to spend it on anything else. Most people do the opposite. They pay rent, groceries, entertainment, and invest whatever is left at the end of the month. The problem is that almost nothing is ever left. Expenses have a tendency to expand and fill whatever budget is available. Successful investors flip this logic. They set up an automatic transfer of a percentage of income into an investment account the same day their paycheck lands. The money leaves before the temptation to spend it ever shows up. What matters here is not the amount, but the habit itself. A small but consistent amount invested automatically ends up outpacing large but irregular contributions over time, because consistency lets capital grow without the gaps that usually kill compounding. Set it up once, and the system runs without needing any willpower at all. Habit 2. Tracking your net worth. The second habit is about what an investor actually looks at when measuring progress. Most people focus on their checking account balance. If there is money in the account, everything feels fine. But account balance is one of the most misleading metrics because it ignores debt and the real value of assets. People who consistently grow their capital track net worth instead. This is the difference between everything a person owns, including investments and savings, and everything they owe, including loans and installment debt. This number shows the real direction things are moving in. The habit is to fix this number regularly, for example, once a month. The investor lists every asset, subtracts every liability, and looks at the final figure. The number itself matters less than the trend. Is net worth growing month over month, even slightly? Or is it flat? Or worse, shrinking because of rising debt. This simple practice changes how a person thinks. Instead of anxiety over balance fluctuations, there is a calm confidence built on understanding the overall trajectory. This is exactly what separates beginner thinking from the mindset of someone systematically building wealth. The third habit protects capital from the most common enemy of any beginner investor: impulse spending. Modern apps and stores are designed to make purchasing as fast and effortless as possible. One click, a saved card, and the money is gone before a person even has time to ask whether they actually need the item. People who successfully build capital deliberately make optional spending harder. This is called a one-step barrier. They remove saved card details from the apps where spontaneous purchases happen most. As a result, buying something requires pulling out the card again and manually entering the details. It takes a minute, but that minute gives the brain time to cool down and ask whether the purchase is really necessary. The same principle applies to investment accounts, but in reverse. The account money gets withdrawn from for spending should require effort. The account money flows into for investing should run as automatically as possible. The point of this habit is using friction as a tool. Remove friction where capital needs to accumulate, and add friction where capital tends to leak out. Here is habit number 4, the one mentioned right at the start. It is probably the most underrated of all 7, because it goes against the natural human desire to see the fruits of your labor right now. When an investor receives dividends or profit from selling an asset, the temptation is to withdraw that money and spend it. That decision, repeated over and over, is exactly why some investors stay stuck for years, while others watch their capital grow exponentially. Compounding only works when profit stays inside the system and keeps working alongside the original capital. If income gets withdrawn every time, growth becomes linear, meaning slow and predictable. But if income gets reinvested, each following period calculates profit on a larger base, and growth starts accelerating on its own. People who have built serious capital treat dividends not as spending money, but as new fuel for the system. They set up automatic reinvestment wherever possible, so income immediately buys new assets without manual involvement. This single habit often determines whether an investor ends up with real capital years down the road. The 5th habit is about the time an investor regularly dedicates to their finances. It is a short weekly ritual that takes about 15 minutes, but changes the quality of financial decisions across the entire year. Once a week, on the same day, the investor walks through a few simple steps. First, checking whether automatic transfers into the investment account went through as planned. Then, briefly reviewing the portfolio to confirm the asset allocation still matches the original plan. After that, scanning recent spending for anything unusual. Finally, jotting down one short observation, such as noticing a new spending habit or spotting a new opportunity. The real value of this ritual is not in the steps themselves, but in the consistency. Someone checking their finances every single day tends to fall into anxiety and impulsive decisions driven by short-term noise. Someone who never checks for months tends to lose control quietly without noticing. Weekly is the sweet spot, frequent enough to catch a problem early, and infrequent enough to avoid emotional reactions to short-term market swings. The 6th habit is not a one-time action, but a mindset applied every single time a new investment decision comes up. This is diversification, but not in the surface-level way most beginner investors understand it. Many assume diversification just means buying a few different stocks instead of one. But if all of those stocks belong to the same industry and depend on the same economic factors, real diversification never happens. It is an illusion of protection that collapses the moment a crisis hits that specific industry. Investors who systematically build capital turn diversification into a constant habit of thought. Before every new investment, they ask themselves one question: If this asset drops sharply, what happens to the rest of my portfolio? If the answer shows the entire portfolio would suffer, real diversification is missing. This habit also includes regularly checking the portfolio balance over time. One asset class can grow faster than the rest and start taking up too large a share, quietly increasing overall risk. Periodically rebalancing the portfolio back to its original allocation protects capital from excessive concentration. The seventh and final habit is often the most overlooked because it does not look like a typical financial tip. This is education, not casually watching a video now and then, but deliberately setting aside money and time for developing financial literacy as its own line item in the budget, right alongside investing. Beginner investors often treat education as something secondary they can pick up in their spare time from random sources. The problem is that markets constantly change. New tools and new risks keep appearing. And without updating knowledge, decisions end up based on outdated information. People who consistently build capital set aside a small portion of income specifically for quality education. This might be a subscription to analytical resources, a course, books from respected authors, or consultations with financial professionals. They treat this spending not as a cost, but as an investment in their biggest asset, their own ability to make sound financial decisions. The gap in outcomes between an investor who keeps learning and one acting blindly off random advice grows enormous over time. Education, built into the budget as a fixed line, ties the entire system of 7 habits together. Now bring all 7 habits together. Automating your investments removes the need to make the same decision every single month. Tracking net worth reveals the real direction things are moving in. A barrier against impulse spending protects capital from an investor's most common enemy. Reinvesting dividends turns linear growth into exponential growth. A weekly financial ritual keeps the whole system under control without unnecessary anxiety. Diversification as a mindset protects capital from collapsing during a crisis. And ongoing education makes all 6 other habits stronger with every passing year. On their own, each habit looks insignificant. 1 automatic setting, 1 minute of pause before a purchase, 1 weekly check-in. But this is exactly what behavioral compounding means. Small actions, repeated long enough, stack together and produce a result far larger than the effort behind any single step. The gap between someone stuck in place for years and someone building real wealth almost never comes down to salary or luck. It comes down to which system is quietly running in the background while that person goes about their normal life. If you want to be in the second group, start with just 1 habit today, not all 7 at once. Set up an automatic transfer. Remove a saved card from the app where impulse purchases happen most, or simply write down your current net worth. A small action today is the first contribution to the same compounding that will separate you, years from now, from everyone who never started. If this video was useful, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next breakdown.